On to part 3 of Act 3. This part of the story is chapter 4, verses 11 to 15. And in stories in general, as we're moving up to the climax, the pace quickens very quickly. The pace increases a lot. So we're going to have a lot of action happening, but not a lot of deliberation, not a lot of explanation. The action, as an audience, as a reader, we understand what is happening because it's been so well set up in the other parts of the Bible. We know exactly what an opponent means. It doesn't need to be explained here. That's why it's important to explain it really well in Act 1, what the opposition is, what the goal is, that sort of thing. And in Act 2, we know the characters from Act 2 and the kind of internal struggle that's happened really, really well. So they can, in this part of the story, they can just happen in succession, one after the other. This part 3 of Act 3, is the gauntlet. So this is where the protagonist has everything they need. They have been given every chance to not show up for the battle. They're past the point of no return. They're entering the gauntlet. This is where all of the opponents line up one by one, and they must go through all of the opponents to get to the main battle. Can they, and here the main battle is, can they actually have a child who will continue on the kingly family line? So in verses 11 to 15, so Boaz has his right to redeem, and we kind of see hints of what the opposition would have been, but in line with part 1 of Act 3, there is no struggle. So normally in a story, the hero is outmatched by the opponent. Normally the hero's power is down here, the opponent has a lot of power, and they are outmatched. But here it's reversed, as we saw in the overall shape that the battle will take in the first part of Act 3, because the hero really is God, and there's no worthy opponent. He directs everything. So we don't see a struggle in a sense, but we kind of get hints of what all the opposition is throughout this part of the book, of the story. So let's look at what they are. Okay, so we have Boaz, who announces to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witness that I have bought from Naomi and all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with the property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from the town records. Today you are witnesses." So at this point, we switch focus to the elders. They have the opportunity to reject Ruth as a potential vehicle for continuing Elimelech's family line, because she is a foreigner, because of her weakness. But what do we see? The elders and all the gates say, "We are witness." They accept. They say, "May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah." So not only are they accepting her as an Israelite, but they are accepting her as sort of the founders of Israel. So Israel, Jacob, he was sort of the beginning of the tribes of Israel. So we have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham had Isaac. Isaac only had Jacob. Well, the only descendant of Abraham that counted for God's people was Isaac in that sense. Isaac only had Jacob, who became God's people, and Jacob had the 12, and from then on, all of the descendants of Jacob, Israel, were the nation Israel. And Rachel and Leah were his wives, who brought forth the nation of Israel. And so here we have the blessing of the elders of the people, who are saying, almost just and I'm reading into it here, but it's almost like they're saying, just like Rachel and Leah were the ones who brought forth the people of Israel, may this woman Ruth be like them in the sense that she is bringing forth, she is continuing on the tribes of Israel, the people of Israel. And then it's even more interesting. They say, may you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. So here we have those two towns that were mentioned in Act 1, Ephrathah being a place of fruitfulness, Bethlehem being a house of bread, but also being these are the places where the king was, so Micah 5 verse 2, it's where the king would come out, the king would be born from Israel. So here we are harking back to that initial hint of the kingly family line. Here it is being recognized by the elders. It says, through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez who Tamar bore to Judah. And isn't that interesting that they would mention Perez, the offspring of Judah. So Judah is they are in the tribe of Judah. Judah is the one who had the blessing from Jacob, to be that the king would come out of him. He is the one through whom the king would come. And they mention Tamar, and Tamar is a foreigner, and Tamar is the one who brought forth Perez, who continued, from her they branched out into the tribe of Judah. So they accept Ruth as a mother of the kingly line, just like they accept Tamar as the mother of the tribe of Judah, and just like they accept Rachel and Leah as the mother of the tribes of Israel, the mothers of the tribes of Israel. So where there could have been some opposition in rejecting Ruth as a mother of Elimelech's line, here they accepted her, and there is a precedent in the genealogies of Judah. In fact, the whole tribe of Judah is descended from Tamar, who is a foreigner. Oh, sorry, I'm saying that wrong. She's not a foreigner, but there was controversy around her because she was her son's wife, and her son, so Judah had 3 sons. You remember the story. Judah had 3 sons, and the first died without, and so the first married Tamar, he died without descendants. The second didn't want to give his brother descendants, so he died. The third one also died, and none of them gave descendants. And Judah was, in a moment of sin, ended up fathering his own grandchildren with Tamar. And so there's the scandal, there's controversy there, and there's parallels in this situation in that there was a man who was supposed to continue on this tribe's line. He died. It was up to his brothers to provide for that, and they didn't. They abdicated, or they couldn't do it. And we have the similar situation here where we have Elimelech dying before he produced offspring, and we have the nearest kinsman redeemer who abdicated, who decided he couldn't do it, in similar vein to the similarities to the story there. So the elders recognize the similarities here, and they compare Ruth to Tamar, which shows that they accept Ruth as an Israelite and as a mother to the descendants that are to come. Okay, so then the next opposition in the gauntlet is he's got the green light from the elders. He's got the legal, so legally he's allowed to. He's been given the sandal, and he has a green light from the elders. They are going to accept their offspring as part of Israel. And next we have, will Boaz go ahead? Will he go through with it? We had a sort of hint in the first part of Act 3 that Boaz was treating Ruth in the presence of the elders like the Israelites were treating Ruth, like the others of the tribe were treating Ruth as a foreigner or just ignoring her. But it seems like maybe he was being a bit strategic there, kind of presenting Ruth with her flaws so that she might be rejected by this man, so that he might marry her. And there is no struggle here either. There's no deliberation. This next opposition is just knocked down very easily as well. It's just literally, so Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. Easy. Now we come to the climax of the story. The story goal, we remember, is to beget the next one along in this proto kingly line, the line that would become kings. And again, there's no sense of struggle here either. So Boaz went into Ruth, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. Easy, that's done as well. Climax. That's the climax of the story, and the story goal has been fulfilled. Yes, the family line has continued. And that is part 3 of the story. So I guess it's not traditional in the sense that normally in a hero's journey you would see a lot of struggle. Here, this is where the hero is brought to their knees. They come to the end of themselves. They need to change in order to be able to meet that story goal. But we don't get that sense here. We get the sense that it was just easy. It just happened. And that was foreshadowed in the first part of Act 3, in that there is no opposition because God directs all opposition that come to him, and he directs all judgment as well. So we move on to the last part of the story, part 4, in the next section.